Welcome into another edition of New Track Record Podcast from the WELT studios. Caleb Hatch, Justin Kinney with you. And it is time to recap the 109th running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Alex Palou gets his first oval win. Just so happens to be his first Indy 500 win as well. I guess we all should have seen this coming, right? I mean, what else? Right. What else is new on the season?
Yeah, I mean, just this is as expected, I guess. And I almost felt like the first oval victory for Alex Palou was going to come in the Indianapolis 500 with the way he's been racing and driving over the last couple of years. And it was the race, a little bit of everything, and we're going to delve into it. And then we'll take 3 hours to go place by place in the point standings because we can now, all restraints are off in terms of talking about the point standings. And here's our update, points update. The championship's over.
Yes.
Okay, moving on.
Okay, and we do have a point stat that we'll get to later.
Okay.
They did highlight it. So we're recording on Friday afternoon. So Detroit, easy for me to say practice, I think wrapping up as we're recording this. But they had the stat that I also saw online earlier this week on the gap between first and second and a lot further back in the field. It's shocking, to be quite honest. But that's where we're at.
When you have won 5 of 6 races and that one loss was a second place, this is the situation you're in.
Loss. Funny to use that word. You know, there are a lot of things that are funny, and we'll get into our 3 things in recapping the race. But we are now 6 races in.
Yep.
Alex Palou's won every race except Long Beach, as you mentioned, where he finished second to Kyle Kirkwood. So what does that mean? That means Honda's won every race.
Uh-huh.
Andretti has more wins than McLaren and Penske combined.
Uh-huh.
And Alex Palou obviously has the rest. It's wild, right?
Right.
Penske's over. We're through Indy. McLaren's over. We're through Indy.
Yes.
And at least with McLaren, Pato O'Ward was challenging for the win at Thermal. Penske, on the other hand,
Penske's been nowhere.
It's been MIA since really St. Pete, if you really want to think about it.
And the most to talk about with Penske has been off the track for sure. And you don't have to go very far back into history to find the last time Penske went through 6 races to start a season without a win. I think it was 21. They didn't win till mid-Ohio that year. So we got a ways to go to break a record for Penske. But the futility has been real, and they were futile at the Indianapolis 500.
And in terms of laps led, so one more stat on the season, and we'll get into Indy 500 stuff. Scott McLaughlin led 3 laps at Barber. Otherwise, as a team, they have not led any laps since St. Pete.
Just pretty wild. Not even a pit sequence.
No.
Leading a lap. Nothing. No. We'll see if that drought ends. And effectively, I mean, it's Chevy's home race, but it is very much Penske's home race, right, with Detroit. And you have to feel if they emerge out of this weekend without a win, then it's really a sizable narrative in terms of going forward. It's kind of been buried with the drama with Team Penske off the track, but make no mistake, this is a shocking start to the season for Penske. And with every race that we go without a win, it becomes more and more shocking.
The cheating scandal has blindsided us from the fact, like you said, that they're winless. And if that happens after this weekend, I think it's going to be a much bigger storyline as well, just because of Detroit, Chevy race, as you mentioned, Penske home race, so to speak. So, we'll dive into that next week when we recap Detroit. But first, we'll get to our 3 things for the Indy 500. Obviously, we'll start with Alex Palou. This is continuing to be a season we've not seen in quite some time in IndyCar. 5 of 6 races he's won. You got to go back to 1979, which, correct me if I'm wrong, was the first year of kart when Foyt won 5 out of the first 6 races. So anytime you're on a list with AJ Foyt, you're in good company.
Yes.
So Palou, essentially, you have an Indy 500 win. You have 3 championships going on 4. This guy is quickly moving up the ranks, not just in all-time Ganassi drivers, which, I mean, he's already on the short list with, of course, Dixon and Vassar and Dario and Zanardi and Montoya. But now he's moving up in the record books in terms of what he's done for IndyCar as a whole. And it's so impressive because it wasn't like he dominated this race, right? He only led that final portion. Final, 16 laps?
Yeah.
He made his move. He was patient. He was hovering around top 5.
14 laps he led.
So he was hovering around the top 5, 6 positions basically most of the race.
Which is what you want to do.
Yeah.
Right? Stay out of trouble.
Had a good final pit stop. Did you see the replay of him almost losing it going into the pits during the race?
Yeah.
I mean, what a save that was. I mean, that could have completely, obviously it would have upended everything.
Yeah, that would have ruined his day.
For what he was able to save coming into the pits, and then when Ericsson came out in front, I thought, wow, Marcus Ericsson has pulled a rabbit out of the hat. And of course, you look at it later and, well, they did because they were cheating. But Palou tracked him down. The threat of the Rahal cars in front trying to stay on the lead lap actually made it more difficult for Ericsson to make a move. And something I noticed watching this race in person, and I don't know if you could track it from the TV broadcast side, but Ericsson was really good in 2 and 3, but Palou was really good in 1 and 4, and ultimately I think that made the difference.
Yeah, it seemed like coming out of the short chutes, or particularly the backstretch, seemed to be Marcus Ericsson, but coming out of 4, time and again, it was Alex Palou, and I think even without the caution, Alex Palou was going to win that race. It wasn't like Ericsson was in position to make a run on the front stretch to try to get the win. And
he closed the gap considerably on the final couple laps, again, going into 3, but never was close enough coming out of 4 to make anything happen.
And I guess, hindsight being, here's my big question, is if Marcus Ericsson had found a way around Alex Palou or had not allowed Alex Palou to pass him on lap 186, would IndyCar have stripped Marcus Ericsson of the win of the Indianapolis 500?
Based on recent events, they would have had to.
They would have had to, right? But it would have taken a lot of cojones to do that. But in terms of what ifs, we don't have to deal with that one because it didn't happen. But a stellar drive from Palou. I've seen different theories or different ideas on what to do with those 2 cars in front. Technically, they're on the lead lap.
Yeah,
they're entitled to that position.
To me, they can be where they're at. They're not a lap down.
Be wherever they want.
You can't blue flag a car on the lead lap.
Maybe it tells me that the cars obviously aren't good enough to pass traffic. But the problem was it wasn't slower traffic. Those cars, they were just off pit sequence. They were every bit as fast, or at least not slow enough to just get out of the way. So I don't see it as being a big deal. Look, not every ending to the Indianapolis 500 is going to be a banger, right? And so to me, I don't know. I don't really have a problem with the 2 cars trying to hold on to their lead lap. I know some drivers said they wanted to get out of the way, and fans have talked about, is there a way to get them out? That's racing to me, in my opinion.
The real problem that I have is you have a car where leaders can't pass and lap cars in 17th and 18th spot. That's more of an issue to me.
Well,
I had no issue with them doing what they were doing, swapping places and trying to remain on the lead lap. You have a car where the drivers basically had no desire to pass them. I mean, Ericsson
that's
made
the big
a
thing.
look.
I don't think they wanted to.
Yeah, Ericsson had a look at one point and then couldn't make a move. I think this was going into 3, backed out, and then obviously Palou caught up to Ericsson a few laps later. But to me, the issue is you have a car here where it's so similar, but also so heavy, and then the balance is off, that you don't have leaders lapping them. That's the issue.
But I don't think they wanted to. I don't think either Marcus
also an
or
issue.
Alex.
I think they're both issues.
Well, no, but then I don't think it's an issue. You always get a boost from you don't want to be the first car breaking up the air in front. You don't want to be that.
But if you're good on fuel and you have a couple lap cars ahead of you, isn't that ideal?
No,
now, granted,
I don't think
Elio
so.
did the same thing in his 4th win in 21, right? He used those cars in front of him.
But what have they always said? You don't want to be leading on the next to last lap.
Yes.
So I don't think either one of them, Marcus Ericsson or Alex Palou, wanted to push the envelope and push the issue to pass those cars, because if you're out front, you're a sitting duck. And he was content basically using those guys to break the air for him to be the third through the draft, so to speak.
And once you're fourth in line, it becomes much more difficult to pass.
As opposed to second in line. Mm-hmm. So I think they were content. A, those two forward cars weren't breaking any rules. And B, I think the leaders were content. Ericsson was content until he left that door open just slightly, didn't think that Alex Palou was going to take it. I don't know why he didn't think he was going to take it. Once Palou got in front, though, he was fine. I'm going to sit here and follow these guys, particularly since they were fast. They weren't overly slow. They weren't slow cars. And he was like, I'm just going to sit behind these two cars and breeze to the win, which is what he did.
So Alex Palou gets the win. His incredible season continues. That's obviously going to be my first takeaway because this was the perfect race performance. This race that Alex Palou won, to me, encapsulates what he does. Is he waits for the perfect opportunity. It's very Dixon-esque.
Right.
It's not domination. He didn't dominate this race, but he knows where to be in the right spot at the right time. And that's what he did. And now he can pretty much coast his way to a third straight IndyCar championship.
And, well, for my opinion, as we talked about trying to find in the first part of the season anybody to challenge Palou, I have now gone to the complete other side and say, look, I want Alex Palou to win every single race the rest of the year. I want to see something historic because we're on our way. 5 of the first 6 races won by Alex Palou, first time since AJ Foyt. And I want to see him just absolutely destroy the record books. The championship's over. Okay, so why not just get on board Alex Palou and say, just win every race?
Are we looking at 8 wins, 9 wins, 10 wins,
Can he get to double digits right now? He's halfway.
Yeah.
And you have, 12 races to go? 11 races to go? Something like that. So it's possible. I just want to see Alex Palou just completely destroy. And I know there's people just trying to find reasons why this dominance is. Because remember, Alex Palou wasn't this hot shot prospect coming into IndyCar. He wasn't coming from the European ladder. He wasn't coming from the American ladder. He was coming from Formula supercars, basically, or
Super Formula.
Excuse me.
Yeah, in Japan.
He wasn't this can't miss prospect. He was. Coyne brought him over, and credit to Coyne for seeing something in him, and impressed enough to eventually land at Ganassi. And now look what he's doing. I just think whether you look at, he just fits perfectly with this formula, blah, blah, blah. That to me takes away a little bit of the excellence that we've seen out of Alex Palou. Maybe not giving him enough credit. I mean, this is a guy that came in with not a lot of hype into this series and has completely owned it.
Think about Dale Coyne Racing in 2020. Now, it was a COVID year, so it's kind of forgettable about what happened. Scott Dixon won the first 3 races, and that was pretty much the season. They had Alex Palou and Santino Ferrucci on the same team.
It's pretty crazy, huh?
Right?
And Alex Palou was kind of the afterthought of the two.
Yes.
Almost.
And you can hate on Coyne all you want.
You're looking at me?
Yes. But he develops talent and gives them an opportunity. There has to be a team to give these guys and gals an opportunity, and I think that's what Dale Coyne has done.
It definitely worked out with those two, particularly Alex Palou, but it's just right place, right time, right driver, and I think trying to find reasons why Alex Palou is doing this without giving him due credit with the dominance he is displaying is kind of unfair. I mean, we don't, in hindsight, look at, why did AJ dominate so much? Is because his car was this, and just fit him perfectly. Or Scott Dixon, we don't say, he was around when this, and it fit perfectly with him, and it was more the formula and the car than anything. You can't do that with any driver, but especially now Alex Palou, because this dude is doing it on merit. And I just hope he just goes on an absolute, he goes on one. He continues his absolute run of dominance in this series, this season. Go out, win Detroit. What the hell? Just do it. Keep winning.
That's all he's basically done this year. A couple other notes on Alex Palou. He was at the Pacers Game 3 at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indy. For Pacers fans, unfortunately, didn't go their way. They're now 0-4 playing on race day.
Ooh.
So that's a sign, so to speak.
Well, barring an epic collapse.
Palou, they showed him on the broadcast. He had his wreath around him, but that was a cool thing, not just for the crowd there, but obviously reaching a different audience in TNT and basketball. So that was good. But overall, just Palou, I don't know what else you can say. It's been truly incredible what he's done, and he got the career-defining moment. That box checked on Sunday.
He did, and we'll go from that to talking about the agony of defeat in my first point and Scott McLaughlin.
Yes. Oof.
You know, I know it doesn't fit in the schedule on race day because there's so much going on. But is there a way even just to sneak in a half-hour warm-up early in the morning? Or is there just... Because it was the third lowest temperature at race start in history of the Indianapolis 500?
I thought it was second lowest.
Maybe it was second.
I mean, 92 is the coldest, right? And I
think going back, maybe like in the 40s.
Maybe in another one,
something like that. Should Scott McLaughlin been doing what he was doing? Probably not when it's a green track and it's cool. But every other race, and I know the Indy 500 isn't every other race, but should we have a short warm-up in the morning for the 500? 8 a.m.? I don't know. Probably not. It's never been done, I don't think. But I feel more that has caused a fair amount. And not just McLaughlin, but how many guys with brake issues, cooling issues.
Yeah, you had a lot. I mean, obviously VK had the issue and crashed out. Herta, he had a pit road speed violation because
it was mostly
his brake was to the floor.
Right, and mostly because it was the coldest it'd been in the 2 weeks leading up to this race, even colder than the test. So stopping these cars in 63-degree weather is a little bit different than doing it in 75-degree weather. So, I don't know. I don't know if I know there's not a grand push for a warm-up, but I think that maybe some of these issues would be rectified if these guys could get on track in the morning before the start of the race.
And go figure that
Scott McLaughlin
open test was perhaps some of the best weather period.
I mean, it may have been the warmest 2 days of the entire month, or at least on track activity with at Indy this year so far. So I feel terrible for Scott McLaughlin. It happens. It can't happen regardless of the weather and the circumstances, right? And it just was kind of a preview of what was to come for Team Penske, particularly Joseph Newgarden, who did an admirable job moving up in the field before having the mechanical. So I don't know. It was obviously it brought back memories of Roberto Guerrero in 1992.
Which, funny enough, they showed, which Fox, and we'll get to their broadcast, they had a really cool thing where they had the video board graphic that they put in between the turns and highlighted key moments,
which was cool.
Spin and win. They highlighted Roberto Guerrero.
They did.
And minutes later, that happened. It was so funny. You're watching the broadcast. They're interviewing Jack Harvey from the car. You can see Scott McLaughlin's car take a turn into the wall, and it took him about 30 seconds to, they're talking with Jack, and then they show McLaughlin's crashed car. And if you're watching in real time, you can see the yellow car veer into the wall as they kind of move away from that shot following Jack Harvey's car. So it's fascinating. But yeah, for Scott McLaughlin, he's a really talented race car driver.
Yeah.
Think about what he accomplished in supercars before he came to IndyCar. I mean, he's one of the all-time greats in supercars. And
made a boneheaded move, right?
It's a mistake. He will bounce back. I don't think this will define his career, at least for his sake. I hope it doesn't. Because you could just see, as you mentioned, the agony of defeat. I mean, he was practically in tears when the car came to a stop already. I mean, it's a terrible thing, and you feel awful for him. And if there's one Penske driver who wasn't causing controversy this month, it was certainly him. And for him to go out that way, it was very unfortunate.
It was very unfortunate. Now, this is one of the few races that come to mind in which you do not see the track the day before the race or even the morning of the race, right? The last time you are on track is Carb Day.
It's the only race, right?
I think so. I mean, at least major race that comes to mind. I know it's tradition. At the same time, when you have such a temperature change from even Friday to Sunday, I know part of the allure of the Indy 500 is unpredictability, but would it be better if they have some sort of warm-up? Even Saturday evening. There's nothing going on Saturday. Maybe a Saturday at 7 o'clock. I don't know. I mean, not only did it hurt Scott McLaughlin, obviously, but you look at Scott Dixon's issues in which his brakes were on fire. And I think it was you, or maybe it was J.R. Hildebrand, not J.R. Hildebrand, James Hinchcliffe that said that could be a problem later in the race. And sure enough, it did. And this first stint couldn't stop. And it took Scott Dixon out. But could some of these issues that I guess add to the allure of the unpredictability of the 500 be identified with some sort of warm-up, or at least give the racers a chance to have one more time in the car with maybe temperatures that are closer to what they're going to be once we go green, or even before we go green on race day.
I'll tell you what, the team sponsors would throw a fit because all their sponsor parties are that Saturday night.
True.
That would be tough.
But they would also throw a fit if one of their drivers puts it into the wall before you take the green, like Scott McLaughlin. So,
fair.
I get it. I get Saturday. Yes, there's no on-track activity, but there's a ton of things off-track going on. And this is not a popular theory that I've heard about adding a warm-up, but I just wonder, particularly when you have such a drastic change in temperature and so temperature sensitive and wind sensitive this racetrack is, and how much is on the line, that do these guys deserve one more chance to be in the seat other than Friday?
So let's real quickly go through every driver that we can think of who had a brake issue. You had Dixon, obviously, from the start with the brake fire. You had Rinus VeeKay, who crashed when he was trying to brake coming into the pits.
Correct.
No luck. Colton Herta had the pit road speed violation. Said his foot was to the floor on the brakes. Robert Schwartzman had the brake issue coming into his pit box.
Right.
The pole sitter.
Sato have one?
Sato overshot his pit box.
Correct.
Which ruined his day. He was looking like a true contender.
Was Rossi's issue brake related?
That, I think, was a water pump failure.
Couldn't remember.
And then anyone else that we're forgetting having a known brake. I mean, Palou escaped his brake issue.
Ryan Hunter-Reay, what was his?
That was, he ran out of fuel.
That's right. On his
and they couldn't get it reprimed.
Yeah, that's true. But it was quite a bit. And, if it was the hybrid, man, we'd just be dealing with so much.
We'd have a field day.
Yeah, well, not just us, but the series would be an uproar. But it was just the brakes. And for Scott McLaughlin, just losing it. I don't know if that's the best place to be warming up your tires when the attenuator is right there. How fitting, an attenuator issue or running into the attenuator, just a different term or involving something different. But, there's not a lot of room on that front stretch. If you lose it just a little bit, there's nowhere to gather it up. And it bit Scott McLaughlin. So it's part of the allure of this race for sure, but man, it was tough to see McLaughlin go out that way. What's your number 2?
My number 2 is Fox. What they did, I mean, the build up to the event, they had fans, I say in quotes, at Major League Baseball games, wearing
so cool.
Indy 500 t-shirts, dumping a bottle of milk on them after like a home run, and they'd cut to that shot in the crowd. Yep. They did that at 3 or 4 different ballparks. I think it was
3 different regional games are on Fox on
the Saturday before the race. So you have that promotion. This isn't necessarily a Fox thing, but Goodyear steps in, and they were part of what they were branding the goodest day in motorsports with a Goodyear blimp in Charlotte for the Coca-Cola 600, in Indy for the first time since who knows when, for the Indianapolis 500, and then in Monaco for the Monaco Grand Prix. So Goodyear across the globe with that promotion, which was really, really cool. And then everything they did. I haven't watched the 2-hour pre-race, but I haven't
watched too much of it either.
The race broadcast. I saw clips of, the stories that, Rinaldi did, obviously, on the Powers. I need to go back and watch that. He had a really good military feature early on in the Open for the noon on portion. But Look, I get you can nitpick little things with Fox. There's still timing and scoring issues, but that's an IndyCar problem, as we've learned.
Right.
And that was happening at the track, too. You'd see, like, it would say someone passed someone, and then it'd flip right back. And that didn't happen. So it is frustrating, but it is what it is.
It didn't take me out of watching it.
No.
I'll tell you that.
And then, yes, at the end, they went to the crash car of Nolan Siegel instead of Palou crossing the finish line. Okay. These are minor things. I get that people are up in arms about that. But overall,
I don't know. And I love to complain. You know me. If you've listened to this podcast, a lot of this stuff is I don't have whatever. I don't have the energy.
Fox took a above average race and made it feel like such a big event. Right. And that was my biggest takeaway from the broadcast. By the people that they had in, I mean, you had Tom Brady and Jimmy Johnson, the two-seater, Michael Strahan in the pace car, Gronk in the snake pit. So there's some of your big personalities. A-Rod and Jeter giving the drivers to your car's command. You have Danica Patrick, Tony Stewart. Yeah, Tony Stewart, like I fully agree. He was outstanding. Obviously, the booth is great. The pit road coverage is great.
Sure. Even something that wasn't as prevalent was better, in my opinion. Once the race started, we did not see Chris Myers, Danica Patrick, or Tony Stewart the entire race.
Yes.
And I thought that was great. And they had plenty of opportunities on cautions to let's go throw it to the booth, the Fox booth and talk blah, blah, blah. You kept it engaged with the three play-by-play announcers that are perfectly capable of covering every story and all that stuff. You don't need to throw it back to the Fox booth and all that stuff to handle that. And it almost, in previous years, as much as I like Mike Tirico, I kind of took me out of the 500 a little bit because I'm so used to the three-man crew. And I look at it at Tirico and Danica and whoever was up there going, I don't need these people to break down what's going on because I have a darn good booth to do that. And we had it in previous years with Lee Diffie, and now we have it with the two returnees and Will Buxton. So I thought that was a great addition by subtraction because they always, every 50, 60 laps or so would throw it to the booth and they have to break down what this stint is about and blah, 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 even though we further and further with each year get away from Danica actually being an IndyCar. But I think she does a fine job. Tony Stewart was great. There's no place for them, barring a red flag situation or a significant rain delay, to have them chime in. And I thought it was great that Fox didn't keep throwing it to them. They didn't at all during the race.
And the numbers speak for themselves. There was a revision where the numbers actually went up from the initial Fast National ratings that Nielsen provides, revised up to 7.087 million viewers on Sunday. So that made it a 41% increase from NBC in 2024. That, of course, included Peacock of 5,024,000 viewers. Now, season as a whole, as far as Fox, up 30% over 2024. You hope you could keep boosting that number, right? I mean,
yes.
Not only because of the big Indy number, but the big St. Pete number and all the races on network. You hope that keeps improving going forward.
When you look at that number, and you and I were trading texts, I don't know if it was Friday, Saturday, I think it was Saturday, we said, man, if they could get to 6 million.
Right? Like 5 is the benchmark. 6 and above, you're thrilled.
And they
crushed it.
7. When you look at it, what were the reasons for, in terms of the biggest reasons? Do you look at more activation by Fox? Because we saw that initially happen with St. Pete, and then it's dropped off. But do you come back and say Fox's activation was just out of the park and added it? Do you think that was the biggest impact? Was perhaps the biggest impact raising the blackout in Indianapolis? The local rating was what, a 22, almost 23, something like that?
Yeah, like a 22.2, I think.
Just wild. What do you look at it as maybe the biggest impact?
I think, to me, the Fox promotion, it wasn't just in promos during IndyCar broadcasts. It was across the board. It was on Fox Sports shows, on Fox News shows. They were promoting it, of course, heavily with IndyCar, but also outside the box promotions like that baseball thing. Like, I just think they made this from the beginning. Hey, we have IndyCar and we have the Indy 500. And they made that very clear from the Super Bowl onwards when they started promoting it. I think that's the biggest thing is it was good alignment. I think they went all out in their promotion, and I think it paid off. And I think that's the biggest thing is, yeah, you could get a promo here or there for IndyCar, and like we did see that when NBC first got the rights. They promote it during some of the NFL playoff games, but that was kind of it. And then they promote it in May, around the Kentucky Derby, but it wasn't constant. And I think what Fox did is they made it constant, utilizing all the outlets that they have, not just Fox Sports. I think that was a key thing. And I also think that they had people who get IndyCar at the top, talking about Fox Sports CEO Eric Shanks, who's a Hoosier, who's been in the Indy 500 many times. I think that helps a lot, where you have that alignment. They weren't trying to dumb anything down during the broadcast. I felt like they did a great job of letting new people in, but also not dumbing it down for your diehards.
The broadcast was the same in terms of the three guys in the booth and the pit crew, pit reporters, as it would be at Mid-Ohio and,
just swapping like Jamie Little and Jack Harvey, obviously.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of the information, I wasn't trying to dumb it down or anything. So I will, you and I have different perspectives on this because we grew up in different areas of Indiana. You grew up around Indianapolis. You're used to the blackout. It's always been there. It hasn't ever been really looked at as an issue because you grew up with it. Me, grew up in Northeast Indiana, never had to deal with a blackout. And not only that, but looking at the case of the Chicago Blackhawks, who their owner back in the day, Bill Wirtz, was adamant that you would not be able to watch home Blackhawks games in Chicago because the idea was, well, they'll just stay home and watch and not go to the games. I don't necessarily think that's part of the reasoning to keep the blackout, but I do know that the bump that Indianapolis market gives the TV rating is significant, and I wonder if we've reached a point with TV ratings so important, and in my opinion, the Indianapolis 500 becoming so successful that would not be impacted, in my opinion, by the blackout being lifted in terms of attendance, if we get to a point where it goes away completely at some point in the near future. I don't know. But
the blackout doesn't mean anything to me, to be honest. I feel like there's way too much breath wasted on it every year.
So it wouldn't bother you if starting next year it was gone?
As long as the grandstand seats sell out, I have no issue. I understand why they do it.
I guess I don't anymore because it's so important, that TV rating, so important that I don't see a lot of people deciding I'm going to stay home instead of going to the Indianapolis 500 in the Indianapolis market. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a lot of people, but it's such a spectacle and there's so many people that want to go to it. I just don't know how that would impact the crowd. I don't think all of a sudden you're going to have 75,000 empty seats. I don't think that's going to happen. But man, when you can get 7+ million people watching, and not saying that every single bump of that was due to the Indianapolis market being factored in, but it sure helped. That's for sure.
So I was doing some crack research, and I did finally find what Indianapolis got in 2023 when it was last blacked out. That was a 9.5.
The night rating?
The Indianapolis
the
rating.
The rating was, or the blackout was lifted, right, in 23?
No, it was lifted in 24 and 25. So 23, It was in place. So, I mean, it got more than double. So that's obviously positive.
I mean, it's big positive. I mean, your biggest market, here's my biggest thing. Your biggest market for IndyCar should be able to watch the Indy 500 live. That's my thing. But I preface this by saying I have a different perspective than people that live and grew up in Indianapolis. But that's my opinion.
In terms of the top 11 TV markets for this year, Indianapolis got a 22.4, Louisville a 6.7.
Need a Louisville street race.
Milwaukee and Dayton, 6.2.
Dayton street race.
Dayton's always high up there.
Dayton endurance race. Go from Dayton to Cincinnati.
St. Louis, 5.5. Fort Myers, 5.2. Tulsa, 4.7. Why is Tulsa always high up there?
Well, what else is there to do in Oklahoma?
Greenville, this would be South Carolina, 4.6. Greensboro, that's what, North Carolina, 4.5. Detroit and Knoxville got a 4.4. So usual suspects. But Adam Stern had this in terms of what IndyCar did. And we didn't talk about this yet. Some of the numbers are just astounding. One, the Indy 500 had more viewers than the Daytona 500 this year. That's just the second time that's happened since 95. Now, Daytona was rain delayed this year by several hours. This also happened in 21 when Daytona was also rain delayed in 2021. You got to go back to 1995, which, go figure, last Indy 500 before the split. Indy surpassed Daytona without a rain delay. But then Adam Stern had this in terms of growth markets for the Indy 500. Boston had a 1.68, up 124% year over year. New Orleans
street race
3.12, up 71%. New York City, a 1.85, up 57%. Dallas and Fort Worth, a 2.79, up 55%. Now, they don't have a race, but they will next year, so keep that in mind. Hartford and New Haven, Connecticut, a 2.61, up 48%. Miami and Fort Lauderdale, a 1.68, up 48%. In Birmingham, Alabama, a 4.29, up 47%. Obviously, IndyCar racing in that market. But all in all, I can't say enough about what Fox did. Look, it's a numbers game, and ultimately it comes down to the numbers. Fox, though, put in the work with promotion and new technology and new features and making the broadcast fresh and exciting, not just with new graphics, but with the drone shots, with the driver's eye, all the tech, the cutaway car, which is so cool. They put in the work, and I think they're being rewarded for that work with this big number.
Definitely. Now, when you get to that key word, right, momentum, is this going to be a one-off? Because St. Pete proved to be a one-off. We saw it decline after that. Will this be the boost that IndyCar needs heading into the meat of its schedule here in the summer for races? I'm skeptical. I will be as shocked as I was for that 7 million number for the 500 if we get an over 1 million number for Detroit.
And I think that ultimately is the problem. IndyCar, and we'll get to this in Tweets of the Week later, but IndyCar goes from their biggest event to an event that doesn't look good on TV. I get that it features one of your key partners in Chevrolet, and obviously Penske promotes it. But, man, can you imagine if they went from Indy to another high-speed oval?
Yeah, but the problem is with what's the lowest rated race of the season so far? Long Beach. That looks good on TV. It looks great on TV.
But that was more
Barely
of a
had 500,000.
That was a scheduling issue, though.
Yeah, I guess, but you can. I don't know. I don't know what race would be the best race because let's say you go to Texas and there's 5,000 people there. That doesn't look good on TV. So I don't necessarily know what the answer is, other than I have a hard time thinking this is going to be the boost that we're all looking for every race now going forward. I still think you're going to see IndyCar races drop back down under 1 million, which we know that million number is key for every race other than the 500. And so far, we've only hit that once, and that was the first race of the year.
Move Gateway to right after the 500.
Maybe. But, I mean, you keep playing with Gateway, and now, I mean, Chris Blair hasn't openly said it, but he's hinted at the frustrations of his fans that have already bought tickets to that race expecting an afternoon race, and now all of a sudden it's a night race. And even Doug Bowles has kind of reached out, and there was I think Chris Blair put the video up, or a picture said that Doug Bowles offered to do anything he possibly could to help out Gateway with their new time. I don't know if that means sponsoring fan buses or what, but Gateway, I don't think when it first came on board, we felt here's the gem, we can put it anywhere, and we started messing around with it, and now it's just holding on, and we messed with it again in terms of the start time for this year. So
to be fair, they messed with the NASCAR race day too, so we'll see how that plays out. I don't think it'll be an issue, but anyway,
I don't know what the perfect answer post 500 is for a race, but I do know that I feel that this is that big number, that huge number, which we love to see for the 500, isn't going to have too many residual effects going forward beginning this weekend. Love to be wrong. We'll see. If they could pull anything over 1 million this Sunday, would be amazing. We'll see.
We shall see. What are we even on?
That's both going to be our number 2.
Yeah.
I'll do my 3 and my third one, and then you can do your third one. As I look through, let's see, who do I want to talk about? Well, let's bring up Colton Herta. Did a great job moving through the field. I think a lot of attention went on Joseph Newgarden and maybe not as much on Colton Herta. But once again, a mistake. Going too fast, entering pit lane. It's just the same.
Did he really do a great job going through the field? It was pure attrition.
Well, that's true, but
I feel like he was never a factor.
Well, I felt like he was almost reaching that point to maybe be a factor, and then he has the penalty. Once again, another untimely penalty by Colton Herta. And eventually, you just are who you are. Right? People say that in every sport. Everybody wants to go, well, in football, you went 8-9, but if this, who was it? Bill Parcells. You are who your record says you are. And I think we have enough with Colton Herta to know who and what kind of race car driver that Colton Herta is. At times, he can be very fast. He could be very dominant. Okay? But those are eclipsed by errors, whether it's crashing, right? During qualifying, whether it's going too fast on pit lane in the biggest race of the season. If it's not him, it's the team. But I'm focused more on Colton Herta. He has done enough in his career, mistakes-wise, to really prove that he cannot be an elite driver in this series. Everybody's kind of waiting for Colton Herta to win a championship, and he had that run late in the season last year to kind of put him on the radar, finishing second in the points. I don't know if he can be consistent enough over 17 races in a season to win a championship. And I think I was reminded of that. I think everybody was reminded of that on Sunday.
I mean, he was just second. I get that he was never truly contending for the title because Palou had it all but wrapped up. He was second in the championship last year. Also, we're talking about a guy who's
like a threat to win it, though.
No, but we're talking about a guy who's 25. Like,
I know, but he's been around for 6 years.
I understand, but it almost feels like you're trying to treat him as if he's Marco Andretti or Graham Rahal, where there's all the hype and because he's delivered on that aspect. Now, in terms of being consistent, yeah, he needs to get there, but he's also only 25 years old. I mean, Pato is
I think Pato's in that
higher than Herta's finishing the championship.
But right? I do think there's been more self-inflicted mistakes that Colton Herta has made over the course of his 6 years in IndyCar than Pato Ward, in my opinion.
I think it's more on the team. You look at Andretti and you look at their most successful eras, it's when they've had, a dominant engine manufacturer, like mostly been Honda, let's be honest, or a new car come into play, which is when Hunter-Reay won his championship.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they had the Honda years from, 2004 to 2007, when Honda was far and away the better engine. I get that in 2006 and 2007, it was all Hondas for everyone, but they were still at that elite level. 2012, obviously, new car. Hunter-Reay gets hot at the right time. And then you look at the Indy 500. Honda had the package in 2014. They did not in 15, but in 16 and 17, they figured something out, and Andretti got wins there as well. I don't know. I think the team has always been very boom or bust. So with the drivers, you don't have the level of success. Yeah, Ericsson's won an Indy 500, but that's it. Like, Kirkwood's young, right?
Yeah, I would put Kirkwood as the alpha with that team right now.
I would too.
And I don't think that's debatable. I think that, here's my statement on Colton Herta. If he wants to win a championship in IndyCar, he has to stop making mistakes.
Yes.
Costly mistakes.
So does his team.
Yes, but that's the problem too, is you're with a team that tends to make mistakes. So that makes your margin for error even smaller. And if you combine those two things, a mistake-prone team and a mistake-prone driver, then you're never going to reach the apex of what you can do. I mean, right now, Colton Herta, can he win an Indianapolis 500? Can he win an IndyCar championship? Right now, I say no. He has to figure out a way to cut out the mistakes. I would hope your number 3 is going to talk about your favorite driver.
Well, I'm going to talk about two drivers in particular.
Okay.
May or may not be one of my favorite drivers. We shall see. But you look at this race, and I can't believe we haven't talked about either of these two drivers. Now, one is a full-time driver, but he always races well at Indianapolis. In fact, I think it's quite honestly saved his career, right? His run at Indianapolis over the last several years has saved his IndyCar career, and that's Connor Daly. Outstanding again, as we just expect for him at Indianapolis. It doesn't matter what team he's with. Connor Daly is going to be a contender in the Indianapolis 500-mile race. That is now, count it, 4 straight top 10 finishes. 2 with Ed Carpenter Racing, 1 with Ryan Reinbold Racing, and now 1 with Juncos Hollinger Racing. And he had a ride with Andretti, where he had his only other career top 10 finish in the Indy 500. So Connor was outstanding. Unfortunately for him, it was a tire deg issue. The tires were down to the cords coming into that final stop. He basically had to ride around an extra lap, and it did not go well as he just kept slipping through the order. But Connor Daly was outstanding. He also posted a cool video of a save from Alexander Rossi's gearbox fluid getting onto his onboard camera and saving it in turn 2. I don't know how he saved that, but obviously pretty incredible stuff. But Connor Daly was great, and I think it's unfortunate that it ended the way it did because he was a legitimate contender to win this race.
Well, you look at it, a guy that people forget, maybe this is his first full-time season in 3 years? Since 22?
Well, 23 where it was cut short.
Well, yeah, so full season.
Yes, full season.
22. But look at his last 4 finishes at Indianapolis in the last 4 years. 6th, 8th, 10th, 8th. It's been pretty impressive. Or did he finish 10th this year? I thought he finished 10th.
Well, he got bumped up because of the
penalties. That's true. I guess I forgot. Oh, yeah.
Which we haven't even talked about.
But he's definitely, and even if you include 2021, finished 13th for ECR. I mean, this guy has really found a home, if anywhere. If anything, will continue to be a one-off driver, but he has done very good. And not only that, but remember we used to say Connor Daly, well, he just can't find money. I mean, he's become a pretty good raiser of money in terms of sponsors, whether you look at BitNile and how that came together, even though sounds like they owe ECR
Ed
some
Carpenter
money.
Racing is suing Todd Alt, who also has Ask ROI, which is a sponsor for Rinus VeeKay. There's a lawsuit there over non-payment. Don't have to dive into the weeds on that, but racer.com, you can check it out.
But Connor Daly's ability to find some money and bring some money to his cause. So great job by Connor Daly. The story the last couple of days is, he peed in his car.
Which, that's not a story to me.
It happens.
It is great, though, that it got picked up not just by TMZ Sports, but also TMZ.
Yes, I guess, I don't know.
And Depend was... And Dude Wipes have posting stuff on social media. So, look,
even Juncos is having fun with it.
Oh, yeah.
Rob brought some
Depends. Yeah.
Stuff, so.
No, it was good stuff.
But I was like, okay, I guess.
Not really a story, though, to me.
It happens to race car drivers.
Correct.
I don't know. Overall, it's just a great month of May for Connor Daly. But that was one driver.
Yes.
The other one you wanted to talk about.
The other driver I want to highlight, another American driver, this was his one-off. That is Ryan Hunter-Reay. Legitimately a chance to win this race. They pit with about 30 laps to go. He said he ran out of fuel coming out of turn 4. They stopped. They couldn't get the fuel line reprimed, so it was completely dry, so you couldn't get the fuel to engage to go into the car, basically is what that means. They were finally able to get it a couple laps down. The car wasn't working at full strength. There's an outstanding article on racer.com by Marshall Pruitt kind of detailing all this. And let's not forget, it wasn't just that. It's that the car he was using was the pit stop practice car. He had the fire on carb day, and you thought, well, there goes his shot. Because, look, the Ryan Reinbold cars were quick in carb day practice. They're like 6th and 7th or 5th and 6th?
They were up there.
They've been quick in race trim all month. Jack Harvey, I think, he led some laps. Ryan Hunter-Reay, obviously, led some laps, second most behind only Takuma Sato. So it was a legitimate chance for them to win and for them to take the pit stop practice car, who Ryan Hunter-Reay joked when he saw his crew guys, said, "Oh, that better not be my car." And that was his car that they were taking out of the transporter. That was the car they were going to use. He didn't believe it, but that was the car. And it was a valiant effort. They pit one lap earlier. They probably win the race because he came out ahead of everyone on pit sequences. He was ahead of DeFrancesco and Foster, for example,
right.
Before. It was an incredible effort when you think about where they were on carb day to take a car that he had 2 laps around for just a systems check. And throughout the race, and Fox did highlight it, they made some adjustments, trimmed out the car, but he had never driven this car. So those 2 efforts, Connor Daly and Ryan Hunter-Reay, I want to highlight because they both had really good race cars, didn't get the result that they wanted.
I thought it was exciting in terms of the race because for the majority of that race, at least while I was watching it, and tell me when you were there, we had some possibilities of a small team winning this race.
Yes.
You had Dreyer and Reinbold with Ryan Hunter-Reay. You had Juncos was up there, obviously. You had Foyt with Malukas. Mm-hmm. At one point, you were like, "Oh my gosh!" You had Rasmussen up there. That was in position. You always had Takuma Sato was in the picture. You just felt like something could potentially happen here where a small team is going to win this race, or even a Dreyer and Reinbold would just be amazing. Ended up, of course, being Chip Ganassi Racing with Alex Palou, but it felt like we, especially maybe midway to three quarters of the way through the race, like, oh my gosh, one of these teams is going to win the Indianapolis 500, and would have been cool to see. But when Alex Palou's out there, you obviously know what's going to happen. But
yes.
I thought it was an entertaining race in the sense that there was a lot of different teams and a lot of different drivers at various points of that race, especially after halfway, that you felt they have a shot to win this race.
And we didn't even talk about, AJ Foyt Racing, David Malukas in second. Santino Ferrucci keeps his Indy 500 top 10 streak alive, finishing in 5th. It's the first time since 2000 that 2 Foyt cars finished top 5. That courtesy of Nathan Brown. So you have that. Obviously, what Connor Daly did. You have Takuma Sato able to recover and get a top 10. He led the most laps, and he was racing not only with 2 broken ribs, but was taking a Toradol shot, as Nathan Brown reported. That's pretty serious stuff in terms of a painkiller. Meyer Shank Racing, Felix Rosenquist gets a top 5. Christian Rasmussen, top 10s in his first 2 Indy 500s. There are a lot of good stories. Christian Lundgaard, I get that he's with a big team, but this is one of his better results on an oval.
Yeah.
And for a guy who we thought, does he have it at Indianapolis? Well, he proved the doubters wrong. Fell back early, closed strong. Elio Castroneves, another top 10 at Indy. And, we talked about them, and a lot of people say, well, these cars are just in the way. Well, Devlin DeFrancesco and Louis Foster finished 11th and 12th.
Right.
What a job for both of them. Obviously for Foster, his best, tied for his best finish on the season, and for DeFrancesco, that is his best finish of the season. So
and I even think you throw Prema in there because, obviously started on pole, but Schwartzman, he has the problem, so he goes out. But Callum Ilott, a top 10.
Well, was the top 10.
Well, that's true. Yes. But I think when you look overall with Prema and what they did, and we talked a lot about them obviously after qualifying, but even on race day, I thought they were pretty impressive. We knew Schwartzman was going to fade. We didn't know how far he was going to fade. And I still felt for their first Indianapolis 500, outside of breaking the rules, but, whether that's with the post-race, I didn't look too much into it. I don't know if there's a lot of maliciousness there or just errors, but a rule's a rule for sure. But I wanted to ask you, and I thought you'd bring up your favorite driver and talk about Kyle Larson before we move on.
Oh, okay. I was like, here are you hinting? I don't even know if you know who my favorite driver is, but.
Well, I use that in quotations.
Yes.
Favorite driver.
Well, Kyle Larson gave the thumbs up and had some choice words over the radio when he saw Scott McLaughlin crash. And then for Larson to crash on his own during the race,
Kind of poetic justice.
And we'll have a tweet from Scott McLaughlin for tweets of the week on this. But look, I'm glad he tried the double. And I get that there's a fine line between IndyCar fans gatekeeping, IndyCar away from other people. I want other people to try this, but also don't insult IndyCar by saying, oh, the cars are easy to drive. Now, they may have been easier to drive last year, but they certainly weren't easy to drive this year, Kyle, because you crashed in practice. You crashed in the race. In fact, you crashed also.
Crashed 3 times in the open test.
The open test. So you crashed 3 times. I hope you come back one day. We know you're not going to come back and do the double just because it's too much in the time frames or whatever. And IndyCar and NASCAR need to work together to fix that because it's ridiculous that's a factor in all this. Glad you raced, but also don't insult the drivers. Karma came around and got Kyle Larson.
Do you feel the double is overplayed? It's very impressive to drive 1,100 miles. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. It's been done.
Yes. I think part of it is the Coca-Cola 600 is a shell of what it used to be.
Correct. Now, by all indications,
whereas the Indy 500 is as strong as it's been since the split.
Now, apparently the 600 was exciting by 600 standards. I don't know. I didn't watch it, but I just feel like, and maybe it's because Kyle Larson is so, I don't know, polarizing, but definitely popular in NASCAR. I don't know. Is he the most popular driver in NASCAR?
I don't think so. I think you'd go with Chase Elliott as the most popular driver.
But I don't know. I mean, I guess if there was a criticism, but I understand it's not necessarily Fox as opposed to all media is like hyping up the double. I don't know. I was half joking with you where I want to see somebody do the triple. That would really knock my socks off. And now we can do it with Monaco not being on the same day as the other two. But I don't know. It just seemed kind of played out. It never felt like Kyle Larson had a chance to win this race. I didn't think he had a chance to win last year's race. Finishing 1,100 miles, I know, is a crazy thing. But when you don't care about the other race, maybe that kind of takes you out of caring about the double. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
I mean, all of the focus that was put on him
and with this 600, I mean, it would have been great cross promotion. We talked about this until Fox lost the Coca-Cola 600 of having the Indy 500 and the Coca-Cola 600, but then, the 600 goes to Prime, and they had good numbers, good viewership. I mean, all across the board is good viewership for the greatest day in motorsports, so to speak. Which this was the last year of that for quite some time.
My thing would be, because especially with the delay of the race starting, oh my gosh, everybody was clock watching to see if Joseph Newgarden or Kyle Larson was going to be able to stick around. I didn't care whether it was him or Tony Kanaan. Quite frankly, it would have been cool to see Tony Kanaan, because that probably would have been the last time, in my opinion, that he'll ever be in an IndyCar. I guess I just didn't care if Kyle Larson started that race or not. He was starting 19th. Like, he was not winning this race.
No.
So who cares? I guess I'm over the double is basically what I'm saying. And maybe that's for my not disdain, but my lack of interest in Cup and NASCAR to say that. But I don't care about people that do the double. I don't.
Other things to get to as we wrap up our Indy 500 coverage. No hybrid issues in the Indianapolis 500.
Hey. Like we said, glad there were no hybrid issues as many as brake issues. That's for sure.
In terms of the other cheating scandal that we didn't really talk much about, but pretty serious, there were modifications for Kirkwood and Ericsson's cars, essentially to the EMS, which is the hybrid, and it basically gave them an aerodynamic advantage. Pretty serious. So,
a good thing it wasn't Penske.
They were fined. Yeah, well, yeah, right. Is it because it was Penske, right? That's why we have. Well,
that's the thing. They're being very stringent now, which they should be very stringent all the time. But the residual talk this week about Penske, like, I think you and I are in agreement. It's like, we're over it. Let's move on.
Another thing, you had good storylines, and I didn't get to this, but you had good storylines if you're Fox to promote. Joseph Newgarden going for the three-peat, Then in the week leading up, Penske cheating scandal. I mean, that was everywhere. That was getting picked up by other sports outlets that never cover IndyCar outside of, unfortunately, a driver death or the Indy 500.
Right.
In terms of the Indy 500 as results.
Could that have helped boost the
I think
rating?
it certainly did.
Yeah.
It certainly did. But you look at the cheating thing. So Ericsson moved to 31st. Kirkwood was 6th, moved to 32nd. Callum Ilott, 12th to 33rd.
But he didn't have the same violation.
Yeah, his violation was different. So the 27 and 28, it's Ericsson and Kirkwood. The energy management system covers and the cover to A-arm mounting points with unapproved spacers and parts. There are modifications to those.
I thought that A-arm looked off during the race.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. And then Ilott, this was different. So his breach, the front wing assembly of the car failed to meet the minimum in-plate height and location specification. Here's the thing. You're inspecting that prior, right? So I'm just
If he
confused.
cleared it prior, wouldn't it be fine?
I'm confused there. But then also, they had some other team things with that. So each car got a $100,000 fine. The team or competition managers for all 3 entries suspended for Detroit. Both teams have since gone on to accept the penalties, but yeah, just brutal. I mean, Marcus Ericsson, another good Indy 500, but this one, the history books will not treat it as well. I
think we're just glad that he didn't win the race on Sunday and have him stripped of the win on Monday.
Yes. No, I fully agree on that. All right. If you agree or disagree with us, we'd love for you to interact with us. You can always find us on social media. Our handle on Twitter /X and Instagram is IndyCar Podcast. On Facebook, just search for New Track Record. And you can email us, newtrackrecordpodcast@gmail.com. Send us your questions, comments, rants. You can also support us via Patreon, patreon.com/newtrackrecord. And as always, download and listen on your favorite podcasting platform, whether that is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts. All right, mailbag time. And of course, we have plenty of things to get to on the mailbag. Tried to narrow it down to some of the key things from the last week or so. And we go back and let's see here. Where are we at? We start with Lynn_IndyCar. Wow, Justin, your hot take on Dale Coyne is freaking horrible. Their lead drivers doing better in the championship than following drivers. Alexander Rossi, Joseph Newgarden, and Graham Rahal. Now, that was going into the Indy 500. Yes, the championship matters at every race. So
I stand by my statement on Dale Coyne.
Hey, but they hired Michael Cannon.
Well, they did. I think Cannon is going to be Connor Daly-esque. He's just going to try to work for every team in the paddock. Let's hope he lasts longer than he did with, Prema?
Yes. So Michael Cannon going to
Coyne.
Which
they desperately need help
they did.
Finding speed, that's for sure.
They certainly needed quite a bit of help, but that obviously a big story. And then new engineer for Jacob Abel as well, who returns to action this week. But for that team, I think that's going to be a huge boost, and let's hope that improves things for where they're at, because they could use it, and I think it's a team that has the ability to get a lot better results. Elsewhere on the mailbag, R. Cole said, found some in Ann Arbor just in time for the famous Detroit GP, and it's the IndyCar Parkside trading cards. So,
found them at Target?
Yeah, looks like it.
All right, let's load up and head to Ann Arbor.
Good news there. Elsewhere on the mailbag, a lot of people with opinions on, let's see. Well, we're going to skip the blackout talk. I'm going to skip that.
That's fine.
Okay, here we go. So you posted this poll. I thought it was a good question. How does Alex Palou's dominance affect your IndyCar viewing the rest of the season? Just over 7% of you said a lot. About 17% said a little. 76% said not at all, which I think I'm in the not at all camp.
Yeah, I mean, the majority is fine, but the thing is 1/4 of the people that, now granted, it's not scientific, but it's about 25% whose viewership is going to be impacted at least a little.
Yes, which is significant. Jeff Cerneski said real fans don't quit watching because the driver is dominant. And then there's another, it goes on to say, Transocean Trojan, isn't the casual viewer more attracted to the sports dynasties, Jordan, Brady, Jeter, etc., didn't hurt their respective leagues' viewership, if I remember correctly. That's a great point.
But if they're properly marketed, and those are over years and years.
Yes.
Right?
Palou is finally being properly marketed.
Yeah.
Late for Apex said golf experienced its highest viewership ever when Tiger was dominating. IndyCar shouldn't be any different.
Again, that Tiger's over years and
There was a build-up with that.
Correct.
Let's see. And then Transocean Trojan says, as an Andretti fan, it's been astonishing to see how they blow at every race, and how CGR/Palou do the exact opposite, make their way to the front for the win. He's the only exciting part about the sport right now because he actually passes. Yeah, that's true. IndyCar Cards said, I plan to watch every race, but admittedly I won't find it must-see TV. I have options to watch or listen later. Lynn_IndyCar said, we're watching one of the most amazing seasons with Palou's dominance. History is being made. Welcome to Scott Dixon 2.0. Because_race said, for me, it's the car. Hybrid package has just made the racing boring. Anyone else? I mean, I agree on that. Aaron J. Richmond, on the flip side, it would legit be hilarious if Penske went 0 for 17 on the season. Which, hey, we're getting to the halfway point of that.
It's almost like, everybody wants to tune in to watch the Dallas Cowboys lose.
Correct.
Maybe just, everyone wants to tune in to watch Team Penske's winless drought grow and grow.
Tommy the Trito 1 said, not at all. We're witnessing something historic in the making. Not all of us might like it, but we should definitely appreciate it. CJ9 said, I think most of your listeners, myself included, are IndyCar sickos and will watch every race. As for casual fans, I honestly think it might help. People, for some reason, like to see dominance far more than they would want to see a close title fight. And to cap it off, Brady BC3 said, fast car, go vroom, which I liked that. Thought that was good.
Simple and effective.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll see how this affects the interest in the series for the rest of the season.
Pato Ward, with some choice comments on the hybrids, said, I feel like IndyCar is trying to juggle 10 things at once and forgetting the most important one, which is believing in themselves and in what their series has always been representative of. And I had posted, he's not wrong. That's a Racer.com article for the full story. A few thoughts here. Let's see. Po Shevchenko, when you read criticisms about drivers making risky moves on the start/restarts, because that's the only time you can make up places, all I say is you just noticed this now? I've been making this observation since at least the last 2 Pocono races. I think this is really, it's in addition to the shift to the aero screen, right? I don't think it's just a hybrid. This car wasn't designed with the aero screen in mind. You add the aero screen and you add the hybrid, and it's the combination.
Yeah, I think you are basically it boils down to you have a chassis that's too old and you've bolted on and inserted too much A, weight, and B, things that affect the aerodynamics that make these cars harder to drive, or at least harder to pass.
Pagoda Press said, honestly, they need to turn the juice. They keep talking about it. Now is the time. Make it 150 horsepower per deployment. That does not change anything. Then it's time to abandon the hybrid. For Indy, they should make it more like push to pass and limit your deployments. Look, they talked about increasing hybrid stuff, but that was Jay Fry. And Jay Fry's gone.
Fry's gone.
And that conversation's gone silent.
Must not like that idea.
Sam, with a bunch of numbers, said the Indy 500 qualifying was the first and only time that the hybrids have made a difference in any aspect of the racing. Otherwise, it's not affected the racing other than reliability issues. That's a great point. Indy 500 qualifying was intriguing because of the hybrid. The hybrid actually added to it.
Correct.
Otherwise, though, it's been a subtraction or neutral.
I would agree. The race itself didn't give us much in terms of hybrid excitement.
Yeah. So that's a look at the mailbag. And that's where we stand on that. Don't forget, you can always email us, tweet us, Facebook, carrier pigeon, what have you.
Did you average rate the race?
Oh, yes, I did. I forgot about that.
What do you rate the Indianapolis?
So I would give it 7.5.
That was what I had. 7.5 is where I have it.
And ironically, our listeners said 7.58696.
Hey, we're all in agreement.
So
how about that?
That's where we're
Rarely
at.
happens. But look, I thought it was a solid race. A lot of crazy things happened. It wasn't a banger at the end. They can't all be bangers, as they say. So, yeah, 7.5. And it seems like a lot of you agreed.
The storylines, though, and all the chaos on the first half of the race, and then with different people kind of cycling through contention up until, the final 15 laps when Palou took the lead, and that's when you knew it was over. You didn't feel like anyone was going to catch him. But I thought it was building up for something crazy, and it just didn't quite get there at the end. But still a good race. It felt like a big event, and that's the biggest thing.
Yes.
Fox treated it like a big event. Being there, we didn't even talk about the cool helicopter pace lap thing. That was incredible to see. It felt big. The Indy 500's back, and I think that's very clear, not just because of the TV rating, not just because of the grandstand sellout, but it's permeating culture again, and I think that's the biggest thing. All right, let's get to news and notes and our quick preview for Detroit. And if you missed it, there's quite some interesting video from Practice 1 in Detroit that we will get to. But a couple other things from the Indy 500. Keanu Reeves was there in the Andretti Global pit boxes, but he was at the Indy 500. Also, Mick Schumacher there in the Andretti pit boxes as well. But that's more because of F1 and Cadillac F1. So
yes.
Another name to keep in mind. Tony Kanaan will be in the booth for the series formerly known as Indy Lights broadcast on FS1 on Sunday as the guest analyst. So that's pretty cool. We talked about Dale Coyne Racing, the engineering. So Michael Cannon will be with Rinus VeeKay, and then Mike Colliver will be with Jacob Abel. So Colliver's been a consultant at Coyne in 24. He also engineered Ryan Hunter-Reay's 500 entry this year. And then Cannon was with Coyne from 2014 to 2019. He's been with Ganassi, Foyt, and Prema. Well, Prema was a short time period, as Nathan Brown points out. This, Snarky Moose sent us this, but Honda, interesting look at their IndyCar racing effort from the LA Times, and a couple of clips from this I want to highlight. The first written statement from Honda on negotiations, potential or perceived real conflict of interest which may exist, talking about Penske's ownership and his, quote, significant stake, in quote, in Ilmor. Also, Honda continues to have ongoing negotiations with IndyCar's management and technical teams regarding our future as an engine supplier for the series.
Just decide.
You've won every race this year. You've won the Indy 500. You got hybrids. What else do you need? I understand the conflict of interest, but the Ilmor thing's kind of laughable, right?
That's been a thing forever.
Forever, yeah.
Now it's
that's been a thing for going on, 35, 40 years? Like that, I mean, come on.
Yeah, at this point, we've talked about it before. It's almost Honda's just looking for reasons not to come back.
It's put up or shut up time.
Just go. If it's that terrible, and it's frustrating because, if it happens, it'll be devastating. But
it will be devastating. Honda's been one of the best partners for IndyCar for the last 30 years.
But I'm like, just go if it's that bad. If there's so many problems with IndyCar, just go. Just tell everybody you're done instead of playing this game where, this needs addressed, and they address it, and then you're like, well, what about this? Well, what about this? Well, what about this? It's like, just go. Just save us all a lot of trouble about worrying it for the next year, and just tell us you're gone after 26.
You're about to have wrapped up 3 straight driver titles, an Indy 500, finally winning a manufacturer's championship based on what they're doing. I mean, I don't see how Chevy's going to catch up suddenly out of nowhere. You got the hybrids, like you said. It's put up or shut up time for Honda. Elsewhere, on news and notes, Doug Bowles said IndyCar continues to work on its technical inspection process. Compliance with parts as supplied rules is paramount to providing safe and fair competition. That from an IndyStar story, IndyStar.com, Nathan Brown. That's the quote there. Also, Brown highlighting that Bowles said they intend to implement partial scanning of cars in the near future. Ganassi, Andretti, Foyt, McLaren, and Dallara assist in helping to get the project off the ground this week by providing their 500 cars for scanning verification. One notable team missing there, right?
McLaren?
No, McLaren's participating.
Penske?
Yeah, Penske. Just thought that was kind of fascinating.
We talked about it last week on this independent committee, apparently, that's going to be in charge. It has to be picked by the teams, right? That's the only way this works. The teams and the OEMs, or the OEM. If you're out, Honda, just decide already. But that's the only way. picked by the paddock, but paid by Penske.
Yeah, that's the only way to make it work. Let's see. Elsewhere on news and notes, so I mentioned Mick Schumacher.
I did.
Scott Dixon surpassed Mario Andretti for most IndyCar starts at 408. That's wild.
Very impressive. I did want to throw this debate out there because we talked about who takes over long-term in Team Penske as president, and Marshall Pruitt threw Simon Pagenaud's name out there.
That is interesting.
Which is interesting. I don't know if he's quite ready for something like that, but I said the same thing about Tony Kanaan. He seems to be doing fine. So I think that maybe could be something to watch.
Definitely something to watch. Indeed. Elsewhere in news and notes, you have Jim France, who's NASCAR's co-owner and CEO, was near a deal to fund a car in an upcoming Cup Series race. Backlash in the garage led him to scrap the plans. That from The Athletic.
So here's the owner of the series trying to enter a car.
Correct.
And the outcry was considerable within the NASCAR paddock. And then in IndyCar, you have the owner of the series with the most successful team in series history. It's kind of like the slow warm of a frog in water. You know, it's like if you put him there in cold and you progressively, slowly turn the heat up, he's not going to jump out. It kind of feels like where we've been with IndyCar and Team Penske. Or Penske is like, okay, they were in it and now they own it and they own every aspect. Now they own the series, they own the track, all that. And it's like it kept kind of being glossed over because we were kind of used to it.
Well, I think from the beginning, because Penske said, I'm not going to be involved in the day-to-day operations of the race team, you felt like that was enough. But then the last year and change with all the scandals, clearly it was not enough, and Penske had to crack down and release some people because they weren't taking that element seriously.
Very true. I feel like Roger Penske needs to understand, and maybe he always has, but the guys running Team Penske didn't, that we have to be as squeaky clean. We play by a different set of rules because
Correct.
of the situation that we're in terms of ownership. And I don't think that the leadership, predominantly Tim Cindric, took that serious enough. We cannot compromise anything in terms of competitiveness because of the situation we're in.
And Marshall Pruitt, Racer.com mailbag, the first response, I thought was the most impactful one of the whole mailbag, said that Chip Ganassi Racing alerted IndyCar Tech to the modified attenuators at Barber Motorsports Park at the beginning of the month. He said, I know this because I asked the team and they said they did. So, again, we have examples from last year's Indy 500. We have that example. It just, a lot of stuff was missed on that front. Alex Palou said, F1 is not calling me anymore. He doubled down talking with Nathan Brown, doubled down talking with Kevin Harvick on Harvick Happy Hour. That he said, no interest in F1. Curious, though, about a NASCAR road or street course race.
What is he, 28?
Yeah.
He may as well 58 for Formula One.
That's the unfortunate part.
I'd like to see him get an FP1, though.
Yes.
Spanish Grand Prix this weekend. Obviously, that's not happening. But at some point, because they're going to go away. Well, no, they're adding, Barcelona?
Yes, street race.
Maybe if the calendar lines up, I hope that Alex Palou could get an FP1 sometime at the Spanish Grand Prix.
It would be nice. But yeah, it feels unfortunate, but it's become an age thing, and that's just the reality of where we're at. Elsewhere, Chip Ganassi Racing. So you look at all his Indy 500 entries, and what is the key thing? There's red on the car. So maybe Scott Dixon needs to get red on his paint scheme.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe that's the curse.
Potentially. He's had enough success. There's no curse. He's fine.
Indy 500 career laps led. This from Beyond the Flag. Connor Daly, 82. Joseph Newgarden, 69. Just an impossible stat to believe, right?
Well, the most important is 2-0, and that is Indy 500 win.
Yes. Doug Bowles said on stage at Carb Day during the All-American Rejects show, largest Carb Day crowd ever, which is not surprising because qualifying was also the highest since 2016. You had the grandstand sellout, so there's a lot of momentum for IMS this May.
What I will say is we don't need the Freedom 100. Okay?
Okay.
Plenty of you people are still showing up. And when you look at and this was, I think, further addressed in the mailbag with Marshall Pruitt, which I keep telling you, we need a dumb question of the week from the mailbag because I swear half of them are just ridiculous. But one of them, again, touched on the Freedom 100. And basically, like we've talked about and it's been said before, Roger was terrified that those cars were going too fast at Indy. And there was that one car that broke in half, maybe the year before he took over. And his worry is somebody dies in the Freedom 100 leading into Indy 500 weekend, just completely destroys the entire weekend. And, I know there were some decent results, some fun, 3-wide, 4-wide finishes in the Freedom 100, but it's obviously not affecting the Carb Day crowd with the lack of the Freedom 100.
No, it is not. All right. And then I teased this, that we get to it. The point standings gap. Alex Palou leads Pato Award by 112 points. Award to Nolan Siegel, which is 2nd through 19th, separated by, you guessed it, 112 points.
That's just stupid.
Courtesy of Tony DeZeno. But that stat just kind of says it all. All right. With that, let's do a quick preview of Detroit. And if you haven't seen Will Power's chrome horn on Kyle Kirkwood in practice 1, go look up that video. But let's take a look at Detroit. 3 key stats for Detroit, courtesy of Chad 200. Dixon and Rossi, only 2 drivers to finish inside the top 5 in both races. Average finish for Newgarden and Award in 4 combined starts, 17.3.
Ooh.
Top 10 finishes in 8 total starts for Herta, Lundgaard, Rahal, and VK, 0. So keep that in mind. Taking a look at the schedule. So we'll jump ahead to Saturday. You have practice 2, 9 a.m. Eastern, FS1. Qualifying at noon Eastern on FS1. And then on Sunday, warm-up 9:30 a.m. Eastern on FS1. Coverage starts at 12:30 Eastern on Big Fox. I think the green flag time, I haven't seen an exact green flag time for this event, but usually it's just a couple minutes after the broadcast start time.
Yeah, maybe 12:45 maybe.
Yeah, taking a look at the full schedule. So the green flag 12:52.
Okay.
So actually a longer pre-race. With that said, who's your pick to win? Are you going Palou?
I'm going Alex Palou. I want to see it.
I'm going to go with...
Do you go with a Team Penske? Do you say
yes.
The drought ends? Okay.
I think Scott McLaughlin's going to have the redemption arc.
That would be a cool story.
Right?
I will say that. But here's a point, too, that Marshall Pruitt made. Now, you and I are in agreement that the championship's over, but let's say Alex Palou hits some rocky points of the season. It's not gonna help if a series of drivers win races. It needs to be somebody that just starts winning races like crazy to beat Alex Palou.
Snarky Moose had sent us that Pato Award needs to finish 10 points ahead of Alex Palou every race.
So it needs to be a Pato Award or somebody, a Will Power that just goes on an absolute burner and wins 4 out of 5 or 5. Not only that, they need Alex Palou to finish at least out of the top 7 or 8 in several of those races. So if you are a fan of, let's say, like, if you want Alex Palou to not win the championship, you cannot root for a lot of randomness in the results. You need somebody to go on an Alex Palou-like run to have anybody have a chance to win this championship other than Palou.
Time for tweets of the week. Several to get to as we wrap things up. First, we go to NASCARman_RR, and he quote tweeted Adam Stern's ratings thing, and it said, "The people like Indy cars on super speedways." You have NASCAR Chasm, screenshotted Tom Brady's Instagram post who said, P.S. It was nice to get in one more successful drive in front of a bunch of Colts fans. A lot of boos for Tom Brady going around the track.
I would hope they were good-natured boos. I mean, yeah. In Indianapolis, you boo Tom Brady. I get it, but I hope there was not a lot of malicious boos, you know?
Otto Ward
I don't know what the difference is, really. But
posted a selfie, and he said 2025 Indy 500 P3 with a smiley face emoji, and he has a sticker. It said, I did my bleeping best. Ed Carpenter Racing's account, ECR Indy, LOL Part 2 and version 2 of their Indy 500 results updated. David Malukas David said, hey guys, have I just missed something? Callum Ilott posted, oh. And then this one, NASCAR man _RR. Now is the part where IndyCar goes, if you enjoy the exciting spectacle of super speedway racing, join us the rest of the year where you'll never see anything like that again.
Aw.
Unfortunate, but true. All right, let's wrap it up with our random split error drive of the week.
All right, we're going to the penultimate season of the Kart World Series. What was it called? The Kart World Series, whatever.
The Champ Car Bridgestone presents the Champ Car World Series,
presented by
powered by Ford.
Maybe. Nicky Pastorelli is our
Who?
Nicky Pastorelli. I think you owe a Nicky Pastorelli some money. He may even be here to pick it up. But Nicky Pastorelli, who raced all of 4 races. No, wait, more than that. He raced most of the season for Rocket Sports. Never heard of him. In 2006. His best finish was 6th at, I think it was at Montreal that year. It was, yes, the Bridgestone presents the Champ Car World Series powered by Ford. Overall, he finished 17th that season in points. Again, his best finish was 6th. He did a seat fitting in Formula One, and that was as close as he got to Formula One. Made his debut in Champ Car, the Grand Prix of Houston, second race of the season. It was Rocket Sports' only entry that season, and his first race, the Grand Prix of Monterey, he finished 15th. His first and only oval start at Milwaukee, he finished 10th, and then that 8th place finish at Montreal. He was replaced for the final 3 races of the season by veteran Mario Dominguez. He got into American Le Mans after that, did a couple seasons of that, and that was pretty much it. Again, one and done that final year of Champ Car, did a couple GT1s and stuff like that. And that was all she wrote for Nicky Pastorelli from The Hague, Netherlands. I always wanted to be from a place that was just had the in the name.
It sounds
Hague,
very intimidating.
Right? It does, because that's where all the international courts and stuff are.
Correct.
Right? Is The Hague. So yeah, he's a native of The Hague, Netherlands, still just 42 years old. Nicky Pastorelli, this week's Random Split Error Driver of the Week.
All right, that does it for us. For Justin Kinney, I'm Caleb Hatch. We'll be back next week to recap the Chevrolet Grand Prix of Detroit. This has been New Track Record Podcast.